The sentence. The trial nobody expected. Marcus Chen stood in the galactic culinary court, his hands bound in energy restraints, facing 12 judges from 12 different species. Each one looked at him with expressions ranging from disgust to outright hostility. He'd committed what they considered an unforgivable crime. He'd cooked food that actually tasted good. The head judge, a Vrothian with crystalline skin that refracted light and angry reds, slammed his gavel. Marcus Chen of Earth, you stand accused of culinary terrorism. You have violated Protocol 7 of the Nutritional Standardization Act by preparing meals with unauthorized flavor compounds. How do you plead? Guilty, Marcus said simply. There was no point denying it. The courtroom gasped. In the 500 years since the Galactic Union had established nutritional guidelines, no one had ever admitted to such a crime. Food across the galaxy had been standardized for optimal nutrition, minimum waste, and maximum efficiency. It was uniform, predictable, and absolutely tasteless. Marcus had broken that sacred rule by cooking meals that people actually enjoyed eating. Do you understand the severity of your actions? The judge demanded. The chaos you've created? Marcus thought about the restaurant he'd opened on Station Meridian 6 months ago. How aliens from dozens of species had lined up for hours just to taste his food. How a Krellian diplomat had cried actual tears after trying Earth pasta. How 2 rival species had declared a temporary peace treaty just so they could dine together at his tables. Yes, absolute chaos. I understand, Marcus said. The judges deliberated for exactly 30 seconds. We sentence you to exile on Redemption 7, a maximum security penal colony where you will spend the rest of your natural life. Perhaps serving flavorless protein paste to the galaxy's worst criminals will teach you the value of nutritional standardization. The Vrothian judge leaned forward, his voice dripping with satisfaction. And to ensure you never poison another civilized palate, all your cooking equipment, recipes, and ingredients are hereby destroyed. You will arrive at Redemption 7 with nothing but the jumpsuit on your back. Welcome to hell. Redemption 7 orbited a dying red star at the edge of explored space. The prison was a massive facility carved into an asteroid, housing over 50,000 inmates from hundreds of species. They were murderers, pirates, war criminals, and political dissidents, the beings that civilized society wanted to forget. Marcus arrived in a prisoner transport with 15 other new inmates. As they filed through processing, a Drachnian guard who looked like he'd eaten children for breakfast shoved Marcus toward a line. Welcome to paradise, human, the guard sneered. Hope you like protein paste, because you'll be eating it 3 times a day for the rest of your life. The prison cafeteria was exactly as depressing as Marcus had imagined. Long metal tables, flickering lights, and the overwhelming smell of industrial cleaning solution trying to mask something far worse. Inmates shuffled through lines, collecting trays of gray paste that supposedly contained all necessary nutrients. Marcus took his tray to an empty corner and stared at the substance that would be his food for the foreseeable future. It looked like wallpaper paste. It smelled like nothing. When he tasted it, his chef's soul died a little. Zero flavor, zero texture, zero anything that made eating worthwhile. Around him, inmates ate mechanically, shoveling paste into their mouths with the enthusiasm of robots charging their batteries. No one talked. No one smiled. They just consumed nutrients and returned to their cells. This, Marcus thought, was the real punishment. The discovery. Marcus spent his first week observing. The prison compound was massive, with work assignments in various sectors: mining operations, waste recycling, equipment maintenance, and agricultural production. That last one caught his attention. The agricultural sector grew basic crops for the prison's self-sufficiency, bland vegetables and grains that got processed into the protein paste. But Marcus noticed something interesting. The workers would occasionally sneak bits of raw produce, eating them when guards weren't looking. Even flavorless vegetables were better than paste. He requested transfer to agricultural work, claiming he had farming experience from Earth. The request was approved. Nobody wanted that assignment anyway. It was hot, humid, and involved actual physical labor. On his first day in the hydroponic bays, Marcus felt hope for the first time since his sentencing. Row upon row of growing plants stretched before him. Nothing fancy: potatoes, grain stalks, protein beans, nutrient kelp. But to a chef's eyes, these were ingredients. The agriculture supervisor was a Thorian named Kex who'd been imprisoned for smuggling. He had 4 arms and a permanent scowl. "Don't get any ideas, human. Everything grown here gets processed into paste. Nothing leaves this sector without authorization." "Understood," Marcus said, already planning. He worked hard for 3 weeks, learning the layout, earning trust, understanding the system. The guards barely supervised agricultural workers, who would steal flavorless vegetables. The processing happened in a different sector, so there was a window of time between harvest and transport. That's when Marcus started his real work. The resistance begins. It started with small things. Marcus would accidentally drop potatoes, then pocket them when no one was looking. He'd trim extra leaves from the nutrient kelp and tuck them into his jumpsuit. He collected salt from mineral deposits near the water recycling system. Smuggled a handful of protein beans in his boots. His cellmate was a massive Vraxian named Torek who'd killed 3 people in a bar fight and seemed perpetually angry at the universe. The first time Marcus cooked in their cell, using a makeshift heating element rigged from scavenged electronics, Torek nearly threw him through the wall. "What are you doing?" Torek roared. "Cooking in the cell? Guards will smell it." "Relax," Marcus said, mashing potatoes with a homemade tool crafted from a spoon handle. He'd managed to steal a small container of fat from the paste processing area and was using it to make something resembling real mashed potatoes. Ventilation cycles change in 10 minutes. By then, the smell will be gone. He seasoned the potatoes with carefully hoarded salt and a few herbs he'd been growing in a hidden corner of the agricultural bay. Nothing fancy, but after weeks of protein paste, it was gourmet. "Try it," Marcus offered. Torek glared at the small portion of mashed potatoes like it might explode. Then his stomach growled, betraying him. He scooped some up with his fingers and ate it. The change in his expression was instantaneous. Anger melted into shock, then into something that looked almost like joy. "This is... I can taste it. I can actually taste something." "Yeah," Marcus said, eating his own portion. "That's the idea." "Where did you learn this?" Torek asked, scooping up more. "I used to be a chef." "A good one." "The Galactic Union decided that was illegal." Torek looked at Marcus with new eyes. "They sent you here for making food taste good?" "Pretty much." The Vraxian started laughing, a deep booming sound that probably violated noise regulations. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I once knew a guy who tried to rob a bank by teleporting into the vault but forgot to check if there was solid ground on the other side." Word spreads. Marcus knew he couldn't keep his cooking secret forever. And honestly, he didn't want to. What was the point of being a chef if you couldn't share food? He started small. A few potatoes here, some seasoned beans there. He'd trade his cooking for protection, information, or ingredients. Torek became his unofficial bodyguard and partner, helping him secure supplies and distribution. Within a month, Marcus had a network. The Krothos twins who worked in maintenance would repair equipment in his cell, actually delivering cooking tools. A Zafrani forger created fake work orders so Marcus could access multiple sectors. A human woman named Sarah who worked in recycling would extract useful items from the waste stream. But the real breakthrough came when Marcus cooked for block leader Vex. Vex was a Krellian who'd been in Redemption 7 for 20 years. He controlled the black market for 3 entire cell blocks through a combination of intelligence, ruthlessness, and sheer intimidation. Nobody crossed Vex. When Marcus's operation got big enough, it was only a matter of time before Vex noticed. Marcus was invited to Vex's cell, invitation being a polite word for, "Come or we'll drag you." Vex sat behind a desk made from welded scrap metal, surrounded by 6 large enforcers. I hear you've been cooking, human. Operating without my permission. That's disrespectful. Marcus met his gaze steadily. I'm happy to operate with your permission. In fact, I'd like to make you an offer. You're not in a position to offer anything. Let me cook for you. One meal. If you don't think it's worth protecting my operation, I'll stop and accept whatever punishment you decide. Vex studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded. One meal. It better be exceptional. Marcus had been saving ingredients for 2 weeks, anticipating this moment. He'd hidden them in various locations, and with Torik's help, assembled them in Vex's cell. The ingredients were humble: potatoes, beans, some wilted vegetables, a bit of protein paste that he could render into something resembling fat, and herbs he'd been cultivating. But in Marcus's hands, humble ingredients became something magical. He made a stew. Nothing fancy by Earth standards, but after months of eating flavorless paste, it might as well have been ambrosia. He slow-cooked the protein until it was tender, roasted the vegetables until they caramelized, reduced everything into a rich broth that filled the cell with aroma. Vex's enforcers kept glancing at the pot, their expressions softening despite themselves. Even in a maximum security prison, surrounded by killers, the smell of real cooking was universal language. Marcus served Vex first, in a bowl he'd crafted from recycled plastic. The Krellian stared at it suspiciously, then took a small taste. His eyes widened. He took another bite, bigger this time. Then another. Within minutes, he'd finished the entire bowl and was looking at the pot like it contained the secrets of the universe. This is... Vex seemed to struggle for words. I haven't tasted anything like this since before I was imprisoned. How is this even possible with prison ingredients? Because food isn't just nutrients, Marcus said. It's culture, memory, comfort, joy. The Union standardized nutrition but forgot why we eat in the first place. Vex set down his empty bowl. From now on, your operation has my protection. But I want something in return. You're going to teach others. We're going to spread this. Because if one human chef can make food taste like hope, imagine what dozens of inmates with your knowledge could do. Marcus smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The underground movement. Over the next 6 months, Marcus's cooking school became an underground movement. He trained inmates in small groups, teaching them not just recipes but the fundamental principles of flavor, technique, and presentation. It didn't matter what species they were, everyone could learn to make food better. A Vrothian murderer learned to ferment vegetables, creating prison kimchi that became legendary. A Drachmian weapons dealer discovered she had a talent for baking, using yeast cultured from the agricultural sector to make something resembling bread. The Krothos twins figured out how to brew a drinkable beverage from grain and fruit scraps. The prison black market transformed. Instead of just trading contraband, inmates now traded flavor, recipes, and ingredients. A stick of real butter was worth more than any weapon. Fresh herbs commanded prices that would have bought starship parts in the outside world. Guards started noticing changes. Violence decreased. Fights became less common. Inmates who'd been withdrawn and hopeless began talking to each other, sharing meals, forming communities around food. Nobody could quite explain it, but the prison was becoming more civil. Warden Korvax, a by-the-book Thorian who ran Redemption 7 with ruthless efficiency, called Marcus to his office after 8 months. Marcus went, expecting punishment, possibly solitary confinement. Instead, Korvax gestured to a chair. Sit. Marcus sat. The warden studied him for a long moment. My guards are confused. Fights are down 40%. Medical incidents are down 30%. Inmates are working harder, complaining less, even showing creativity in their work assignments. Care to explain why? People are eating better, Marcus said simply. The nutritional paste hasn't changed. No, but inmates are supplementing it. Learning to cook. Finding joy in meals instead of just consuming nutrients. Korvax's expression was unreadable. You're violating prison regulations. I could put you in solitary. I could transfer you to a worse facility. I could make your life very difficult. You could, Marcus agreed. But you won't. Why not? Because you're a good warden. You care about order, efficiency, rehabilitation. And right now, this prison is more orderly than it's been in years. Not because of fear or force, but because inmates have something to look forward to. A meal cooked with care is hope they can taste. Korvax was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, if I officially acknowledge your activities, I'll have to shut them down. Regulations are clear. But if I remain unaware of minor infractions that improve prison operations. He looked directly at Marcus. I'm a very busy man. I can't possibly notice everything that happens in a facility this size. Marcus understood. I appreciate your very busy schedule, Warden. Don't make me regret this. And Chen? Keep up whatever you're doing. It's working. The revolution. The inspection. Everything changed when the Galactic Union sent inspectors. They arrived without warning, a team of nutritional compliance officers led by a Vrothian named Inspector Talus who'd personally testified at Marcus's trial. Talus was a zealot who believed flavorful food was a gateway to chaos and moral decay. The inspection started normally enough. They examined food stores, checked nutritional paste production, verified that everything met standardized protocols. Then Talus decided to inspect the agricultural sector. Marcus was harvesting potatoes when the inspectors arrived. He saw them immediately, their crisp uniforms and scanning equipment marking them as outsiders. His heart sank. Talus walked through the hydroponic bays with obvious disgust, touching nothing, as if the very presence of growing plants offended him. Then his nose wrinkled. Do you smell that? He asked his team. They sniffed. One replied, cooking. Real cooking. In a prison facility. Marcus watched as Talus's crystalline face flushed with rage. The inspector had found what he was looking for, evidence of culinary crime in the last place it should exist. The investigation was swift and brutal. Within hours, Talus had uncovered Marcus's entire operation. The hidden cooking spaces, the ingredient smuggling routes, the network of trained cooks. He documented everything with gleeful efficiency. A prison-wide assembly was called. Every inmate filed into the massive central yard while guards surrounded the perimeter with weapons ready. Marcus stood on a raised platform beside Warden Korvax, hands bound, while Talus addressed the crowd. Inmates of Redemption 7, Talus announced, his voice amplified. You have been corrupted by a terrorist. Marcus Chen has violated the Nutritional Standardization Act repeatedly, and worse, he has spread his crimes to hundreds of you. This ends today. Talus pulled up holographic displays showing inmates cooking, sharing meals, smiling as they ate. He presented it like evidence of a conspiracy. Effective immediately, all unauthorized cooking is forbidden. Anyone caught with flavor-enhanced food will spend 30 days in solitary confinement. All cooking equipment will be destroyed. Agricultural workers will be restricted to supervised shifts. And Marcus Chen. Talus smiled. You will be transferred to Isolation Station Omega, a facility designed for the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. You will spend the rest of your life in complete solitude, eating nutritional paste through a tube, never touching real food again. The crowd was silent. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Isolation Station Omega was a death sentence, not immediate, but inevitable. Inmates went in and never came out sane. Then someone started laughing. It was Torek. The massive Vraxian stepped forward, his voice booming across the yard. You think we're going to let you take him? You think we're going back to eating paste without a fight? This is a prison, Talus said coldly. You don't have choices. We're criminals, not cattle, Vex called out, joining Torek. We've tasted real food again. We've remembered what it means to enjoy something. You can't put that back in the box. More inmates stepped forward. The Vrothian fermenter. the Drachnian baker. The Krothos twins. Sarah from recycling. Dozens of others Marcus had taught, and hundreds more who'd simply enjoyed the results. Warden Korvac stepped forward. Inspector Tallis, I must advise caution. The situation is under control, Tallis snapped. Guards, prepare to use force if necessary. These inmates will comply or face consequences. What happened next would be talked about for years across the galaxy. Torek pulled something from his jumpsuit, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing fresh bread that the Drachnian baker had made that morning. The aroma filled the air instantly, carried by the wind across the yard. This is what you're trying to destroy, Torek said, holding up the bread. Not just food. Hope. Community. The memory of why life is worth living. And we're not giving it up. He broke the bread in half and offered a piece to Vex. The Krellian took it, ate it, and smiled. Then he broke his piece and offered it to the next inmate. Who broke it and offered it to the next? And the next. The bread passed through hundreds of hands, each person taking only a small bite, each person choosing to share rather than consume. It was a statement. A rebellion. A revolution expressed through the simple act of breaking bread together. Tallis looked at his guards. Stop this. Confiscate the bread. Use force if necessary. The guards didn't move. Did you hear me? Tallis demanded. Follow orders. One of the guards, a young Krellian, spoke up. Sir, we've been eating the food too. The inmates share with us. We can't go back to paste either. Tallis's face went through several colors. This is mutiny. You're all facing charges. The Union will. The Union will what? Warden Korvac interrupted. Imprison everyone? We're already in a prison. Send in military forces to fight 50,000 inmates and guards over the right to season food? That'll look great in the news feeds. He turned to Marcus. I've been running this facility for 12 years. I've seen riots, murders, breakouts, every kind of violence imaginable. But in the 8 months since Chin started cooking, this prison has become safer than some civilian stations. Inmates are healthier, happier, more productive. As warden, my job is to maintain order and prepare inmates for rehabilitation. Chen's program does both. The regulations, Tallis began. The regulations, Korvac said firmly, were written by beings who've never had to maintain order in a maximum security facility. I'm telling you, as the person responsible for this prison, that Marcus Chen's program is beneficial and should continue. Tallis looked around the yard. At thousands of inmates united. At guards who wouldn't follow orders. At a warden who'd chosen prisoners over protocol. His inspection had failed spectacularly. This isn't over, Tallis said quietly. I'm reporting everything to the Union. They'll shut this down. Let them try, Vex said. We've learned something important here. You can take away our freedom. You can lock us in cages. You can control every aspect of our lives. But you can't take away our ability to care about something. And we care about this. The Union's dilemma. Inspector Tallis filed his report, and as promised, the Galactic Union was furious. An emergency session was called to address the Redemption 7 incident, as it was being termed in official channels. But something unexpected happened. The report went public. Someone on Tallis's team, nobody ever figured out who, leaked the entire investigation to news networks across the galaxy. Suddenly, billions of citizens were watching footage of a human chef teaching aliens to cook. They saw interviews with inmates talking about how meals had given them purpose. They saw the bread-sharing moment that had defied armed guards. Public opinion shifted dramatically. People across the galaxy started questioning the Nutritional Standardization Act. Why was flavor illegal? What was wrong with enjoying food? If a prison full of criminals could find community through cooking, why couldn't civilized society? Underground restaurants started opening on planets across the Union, inspired by Marcus's example. Chefs who'd been hiding their skills suddenly went public. Citizens began demanding the right to taste their food. The Union found itself facing something it hadn't anticipated, a cultural revolution sparked by a single chef in a prison kitchen. The High Council met for 3 days straight, debating what to do. They couldn't use force, public sympathy was entirely with Marcus and the inmates. They couldn't double down on regulations without looking tyrannical. But they also couldn't just reverse 500 years of nutritional policy. Finally, they made a compromise. Marcus was summoned to appear before the council via holographic transmission. He stood in Warden Korvax's office, facing 12 council members representing the major governments of the Union. Marcus Chen, the council speaker, began, "Your actions at Redemption 7 have created significant disruption throughout the galaxy. However, we acknowledge that the outcomes have been unexpected. Crime reduction, improved health, increased productivity. These are metrics we cannot ignore." Marcus waited, not sure where this was going. "Therefore, we are offering you a choice. Accept full pardon and return to civilian life, with the understanding that the Nutritional Standardization Act remains in force. You would be free, but forbidden from cooking commercially. Or?" Marcus asked. "Or you remain at Redemption 7 voluntarily, establishing a formal culinary rehabilitation program. We would officially sanction your activities, provide resources, even expand the program to other facilities. But you would spend the rest of your sentence there, training inmates, developing protocols, proving that this model works on a larger scale." It wasn't really a choice. Marcus had found something at Redemption 7, not just a calling, but a community. People who needed what he could teach. Purpose that went beyond just serving food. "I'll stay," Marcus said. "But I want full authority over the program. No nutritional officers deciding what counts as acceptable flavor. No regulations that prioritize efficiency over humanity." The council members exchanged glances. Finally, the speaker nodded. "Agreed. You will have autonomy within the prison system. We'll monitor outcomes, and if the results continue to be positive, we'll consider broader applications." The legacy. 5 years later, Marcus's culinary rehabilitation program operated in 47 prisons across the galaxy. Each facility had a master chef, always an inmate, always someone Marcus had personally trained, who taught others the art and science of real cooking. Crime rates in participating prisons dropped by an average of 52%. Rehabilitation success rates tripled. Former inmates who completed the program found work in restaurants, opened their own businesses, or simply brought better food to their communities. But more importantly, attitudes were changing. The Nutritional Standardization Act was being challenged in courts across the Union. Planet after planet was opting out, establishing local food cultures. The rigid conformity that had defined galactic cuisine for 5 centuries was crumbling. Marcus still lived at Redemption 7, though he could have left years ago. The prison had become something unique, part correctional facility, part culinary school, part experimental community. Inmates served their sentences, but they also learned skills, formed bonds, and discovered that even people who'd made terrible mistakes could create something beautiful. On a Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was teaching a class of 20 inmates the art of bread making when Warden Korvax appeared at the door. "You have a visitor," Korvax said with a slight smile. Inspector Tallis walked into the kitchen. He looked older, worn down by 5 years of watching his life's work dismantle itself. But there was something different in his expression now, not hostility, but resignation mixed with curiosity. "I'm here to eat," Tallis said simply. "I've spent 5 years arguing that your program would lead to chaos. But prison after prison proves me wrong. So before I retire, I wanted to understand why. I wanted to taste what all this fuss is about." Marcus gestured to a table. "Have a seat." He prepared a simple meal, nothing fancy, just roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and a stew made with ingredients the inmates had harvested that morning. The same kind of food that had started a revolution. Talus ate slowly, his crystalline face cycling through colors that Marcus had learned to recognize: surprise, confusion, and finally, understanding. "It's not just the taste," Talus said quietly. "It's the care. Someone took time to prepare this. They thought about how ingredients work together. They wanted me to enjoy it. That's what I never understood. Food isn't just nutrients. It's communication." "Exactly," Marcus said. "Every meal is a conversation between the cook and the eater." The Union tried to eliminate that conversation, reduce everything to pure efficiency. But efficiency isn't enough. People need more. Talus finished his meal and stood to leave. At the door, he paused. "I was wrong. I spent my entire career being wrong. Thank you for showing me that." After he left, Torek emerged from the kitchen with a grin. "Did that really just happen? Did the inspector who tried to destroy you just thank you?" "People can change," Marcus said. "That's the whole point of this place, isn't it? Everyone deserves the chance to become something better than what they were." That evening, Marcus stood in the agricultural bay, looking out through the reinforced windows at the stars beyond. He'd been sentenced to this place as punishment, expected to break, to learn humility through suffering. Instead, he'd learned that sometimes the greatest revolutions start with the simplest acts. A meal shared. A recipe taught. A moment of joy found in the midst of hardship. The Union had tried to standardize away humanity's love of flavor. But they'd forgotten something crucial: you can regulate food composition, but you can't legislate away the human need to create, to share, to care about something beyond mere survival. Marcus had committed culinary terrorism, as the courts had called it. But his real crime, the one that truly frightened the Union, was showing people they deserved more than efficiency. They deserved joy. They deserved hope. They deserved to taste life, not just consume it. And that message, once released, could never be contained. Behind him, the kitchen buzzed with activity. Inmates preparing tomorrow's meals, sharing techniques, laughing together over mistakes and successes. The sounds of community, of purpose, of people who'd found meaning in the simple act of cooking for one another. Marcus smiled. Let them call it terrorism. Let them call it crime. He'd found his calling in the unlikeliest of places, teaching the unlikeliest of students, creating something revolutionary with the most ordinary of ingredients. One meal at a time, he was changing the galaxy. And he wasn't done yet.